Welcome to G Fun Facts Online, where we unpack the hidden machinery that runs our world. Today, we're diving into a topic that's constantly in the headlines but rarely understood: international sanctions. Forget what you think you know. This isn't just about politicians making angry speeches. This is the story of an invisible war, where ledgers become battlefields and legal clauses become weapons. So how exactly does one country bring another to its knees without firing a single shot? Let's find out. The authority to launch this kind of economic warfare isn't pulled out of thin air. It's built on a bedrock of international law. At the very top, you have the United Nations. Chapter 7 of the UN Charter basically gives the Security Council the power to say, "Okay, everyone, time out." They can order all member states to cut economic ties with a target country. This creates a powerful, unified global front. But it doesn't stop there. Regional groups, like the European Union, have their own rulebooks, allowing them to act together. And then you have the heavyweights, most notably the United States. In the US, the power largely comes from a law with a very dramatic name: the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA. This act gives the president the power to declare a national emergency and regulate pretty much any economic transaction with a foreign threat. The agency in charge of this is the Treasury Department's Office of Foreign Assets Control, or OFAC. Remember that name? Because OFAC is the undisputed giant in the world of sanctions. Their lists can make or break fortunes, and their power reaches into every corner of the global financial system. So the laws are written. The targets are named. What happens next? This is where the private sector gets drafted into the fight. Banks, financial institutions, multinational corporations, they all become the frontline soldiers responsible for enforcing these rules. And it is an incredibly complex job. The core of their work is something called sanctions screening. Every single day, banks have to check millions, sometimes billions of transactions against ever-growing lists of sanctioned people and companies. To do this, they can't just use a simple find and replace function. They use sophisticated software with fuzzy logic algorithms that can catch variations in spelling, different languages, or deliberate attempts to hide an identity. It's designed to spot a Vladimir even if you type Vladimir. But even the best tech creates a flood of false positives, alerts that need a human to check, which can slow down legitimate business. One of the biggest challenges is finding the ultimate beneficial owner, or UBO. Sanctioned individuals are masters of disguise, hiding their assets behind complex webs of shell companies and trusts. Think of it like a Russian nesting doll of corporations. Investigators have to peel back layer after layer to find the real person in control. Because of rules like OFAC's 50% rule, which says if a sanctioned person owns half of a company, that company is also sanctioned. Banks have no choice but to dig deep. As you might expect, whenever a new rule is made, someone immediately starts trying to break it. This triggers a high-stakes global game of cat and mouse. Take oil, for example. To get around sanctions on its oil exports, Russia has assembled what's known as a shadow fleet, a massive network of aging tankers. These ships often turn off their tracking systems to go dark, falsify their locations, and conduct risky ship-to-ship transfers of oil in the middle of the ocean, all to hide where the cargo came from. Then there's the world of crypto. The borderless, semi-anonymous nature of cryptocurrencies seems like a perfect tool for evading sanctions. You can move value outside the traditional banking system, but it's a double-edged sword. Most blockchains are public ledgers, and investigators with powerful blockchain analytics tools can trace the flow of funds, making it a surprisingly transparent world for criminals. Regulators are catching on and are now targeting crypto exchanges that help a little too much with hiding money. The tools themselves have also gotten a lot smarter over the years. We've moved away from the old school, countrywide embargoes that often caused immense suffering for ordinary citizens. The modern approach is all about smart sanctions. Think of it as the difference between a carpet bomb and a laser-guided missile. The goal is to target the specific people and companies responsible for the bad behavior, while minimizing collateral damage. A great example of this is the rise of thematic sanctions. Instead of targeting a country, they target a specific crime. The Global Magnitsky Act in the US and similar laws in Europe allow governments to sanction individuals anywhere in the world who are responsible for human rights abuses or major corruption. This is surgical precision, and we're now entering a new frontier: cyber sanctions. In response to state-sponsored hacking or election interference, nations are now sanctioning the specific individuals and hacker groups behind the keyboards, imposing real-world costs for digital attacks. So this all sounds incredibly powerful. But here's the billion-dollar question. Do sanctions actually work? The answer is complicated. Let's look at Russia. The sanctions against it are the most extensive in history, crippling key industries. But they haven't forced a strategic change in Ukraine. Russia has adapted, redirecting trade to other countries and shifting its economy to a war footing. Or consider Iran. Decades of sanctions have certainly hurt its economy, but they've also pushed the country to diversify away from oil. Some argue the sanctions have hurt the very middle class that might push for change, while strengthening the ruling regime. For countries like North Korea or Syria, sanctions have contributed to devastating humanitarian crises, making it hard for aid organizations to deliver food and medicine, with the most vulnerable populations suffering the most. Even if you're not the target, you can get caught in the crossfire. Sanctions can have spillover effects, harming the economies of neighboring countries and disrupting global trade. But what if you're wrongly placed on a sanctions list? Is there a way out? Yes, but it's not easy. The UN has processes, including an independent ombudsperson for its Al-Qaeda and ISIL list, who can review cases and recommend delisting. In the US, you can petition OFAC directly, and in the EU, you can challenge your designation in court. These systems provide a path for due process, acknowledging that even in this invisible war, individual rights matter. So, from the halls of the United Nations to the algorithms scanning your bank transfers, international sanctions are one of the most powerful and controversial tools in modern statecraft. They are a complex machine, an alternative to war that leverages our interconnected global economy as both a shield and a sword. Understanding how this machinery works is key to understanding the invisible forces shaping our world today. Thanks for tuning in to Fun Facts Online. If you enjoyed this deep dive, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you don't miss our next exploration.